Hello and welcome to the latest episode of this series with me, Baker Lillivick for In Scout, and I'm delighted today to have an ex-Lioness joining us. It's Issy Pollard. How are you doing? Great to have you on.
I'm very well, thank you for having me and thanks for the invite.
No, looking forward to chatting all about your career in football and beyond. I'm sure there's many great things we can talk about, but we always begin in the same place in each of these episodes, and it's going back to the very start and just asking, what was life like growing up for you, Izzy?
Well, as you probably know, it's quite a long time ago when I started playing. But probably the same as every sort of young girl growing up, kicking a ball at 2, 3-year-old parents, no idea where it came from. And then obviously lack of opportunity, certainly in schools. Although my headmaster was really good and supported me all through junior school, which was nice. So I played with the lads, and it's funny because I think back now, and when you're in the playground and there's like 8, 9 kids playing football and you choose captains, I was like the first one to be picked by the captain. So that I must have been all right back then as well as a kid. But yeah, going on from that, it was the WFA that actually ran the women's football back then. So my mum got in touch with the WFA and asked who the nearest club was, which was Bradford City. So at 11, I headed over to Bradford City. Obviously, there was no like U12s, U14s, U16s. It was, straight into senior football as a barely a teenager, probably. So I got roughed up early.
Started very young then.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess that's where it started at Bradford City, which was kind of my development club for sort of like 4 or 5 years. Um,
Sometimes, sometimes they say, don't they, though, it's best to just go straight in at the deep end.
yeah, and it's good because we were all the same age. We were just young and fast and enthusiastic, and probably was a pin in the backside for most teams to play.
Well, I also read at the same time you were also a very talented hockey player too.
Yeah, it was quite a tricky one that because I was playing like county hockey up until I was like 15, 16. Um, and I had to sort of choose which direction to go in. And I knew I'd have a greater chance at playing for England in football. So it was kind of like really a knife through it. I just stopped playing hockey because it took up a lot of time with like training and matches. Well, took my dad's life over completely. Um, and I just put everything into football. Then I moved into a bigger club. Bronte was in the National League back then, which was just down the road from Bradford. And got my first call up for England at 16. So it paid off.
It certainly seemed like it was the right decision then afterwards. But was it tricky kind of picking between football and hockey? I know you mentioned that you'd put a lot into football and you knew you had a greater chance, but was there a risk in choosing football? Was it a hard decision, or like you said, did you know that football was a thing?
Yeah, I think I was slightly better at football than hockey. Um, and it's I think I just think I genuinely had more chance. There was a hell of a lot more girls playing hockey back then, and still is obviously, and less competition probably.
Yeah, it's. I think as well. It's like I think you sometimes get a feel for something, don't you? And like
Yeah,
you've been playing football, so I bet that just did feel right.
yeah, and all my friends were playing football, so that made it a little bit easier as well. Because the hockey tended to be through school, and college rather. Football was more of a social thing as
Mm,
well. So I think that maybe
yeah.
tipped the balance a bit.
I wanted to ask you actually, what was it like when you were starting out in women's football back then? Because of course we've seen a massive development within the women's game in recent years, which is great to see. But I know you mentioned there about opportunities being quite tough back then. So what was it like trying to get into women's football back then?
Yeah, it was tough, and that was just due to opportunity. It wasn't like the lack of people wanting to do it. It was just, how close were the opportunities. I mean, for me, it was I live in Hebden Bridge, which is like a really small village up in North
Yeah.
of England. Um, and like my mum and dad were taking me to training, taking like 40 minutes to get to training twice a week and playing on a Sunday. So I mean, it was down to sort of like family support that enabled me to be able to do it, and though, my dad sort of giving up his life to follow my career and get to, where I wanted to be. I wouldn't have done it without family support, without a doubt.
I think, like you said, that's a big thing, having the family behind you as well, and pushing you, and just like you said, being behind you to do that. But I think now, as well, we see like there's in the women's game, there's like a lot of junior levels as well, which must be a massive thing to help these girls develop into good footballers.
Yeah, it's huge, and I think that's what's made the Lionesses what it is now, and you know, the pathway that these kids are on from, from like ETCs, I think they call the like training centers, going on to like pro game academies. The pool of talent is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because there's more funding going into sort of like academies, which are enabling lionesses to be as successful as they are because they're picking out talent that wouldn't have normally been discovered.
I think, like you said, there's probably plenty of players that could have made it back then when you did, but potentially didn't because there wasn't as much investment and as much funding going into that sector of the game.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, we there was like a group of us, and like there was a few girls from Sheffield, a few girls from Manchester, and just a handful, and we all knew each other because it was such a small pool. And we still had like regional opportunities. We were playing for like the Northeast or the Northwest, so we all kind of knew each other. And it was kind of nice back then. I mean, there's so much more competition now, and sometimes I ask myself, God, could I have made it now? The way that the game is, and yeah, because the coaching's completely different now, and that's people say, oh, the players are better now. The players aren't. I think the standard of coaching, and the fact that these girls can play day in, day out for hours and hours as professional sportswomen, that's the difference. We were training twice a week and playing on a Sunday, and we were as good as we were. So that, there's a huge difference. Of course there is.
Yeah, I think back then as well, football was a very different game, just as a whole as well in terms of like, I think back then it was about your ability,
Yeah.
whereas now I think there's a lot of kind of it's about being a good athlete as well and being at the right level. But do you question that then? Do you kind of
I have
think
done.
about your like putting yourself in like the shoes of somebody in an academy or something in today's game?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most former probably lionesses or former players would down now because inevitably the standard is higher. But there's reasons why that standard is higher. If we'd have had the same, the coaching, the same opportunities, the ability to be able to play, 5 or 6 hours a day, then yeah, we absolutely could have cut it. Because players like Kelly Smith, who kind of like lived in a few generations of the development of the women's game. She was in it. I remember being out I think we were out in Spain with Kelly. I roomed with her, and she was only like 17 then, so she was there. When there was like the raw, training twice a week, and she's kind of come through like a really fantastic pathway. Because obviously she went to the States, she went to Seton Hall in New Jersey, and then came back, and then it went all, semi-pro, and then it went to pro. So she's just been able to, to travel with the game as it's evolved, and still in it.
And that led on to a really great career, like you
Yeah.
say. And yours was successful too, of course, making it, and then like you say, signing for Bradford, then
Yeah.
moving to Bronte. So tell me a little bit about some of the heights and successes of your playing career and at club level, because you represented six different clubs, I believe, including two spells at Bronte.
Yeah, well, I went to Bronte, and there was a few of us that went there. There was Sammy Britton, who was obviously a prolific England international. I think she got 70 or 80 caps. Chantal Woodhead, Becky Lonergan, and there were like us four sort of like, you know, bordering sort of like England internationals, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And we won the promotion into the National League then. And we did get relegated, and that was like a awful as a 16-year-old feel, that first sort of like big, wearing your heart on your sleeve for that club. I loved it. And then we got relegated, but it kind of was the start, I suppose, of me going on to greater things. Sammy and Becky They moved down to Arsenal, and I went to Millwall Lionesses as a 16-year-old. So I look at like 16-year-olds now, and I just think, oh my God, I moved down to London then. I was kind of like
Yeah.
self-sufficient, still playing, training twice a week and playing on a weekend, working a full-time job, which the club had sorted out for me, and living with a host family. And spent a couple of years down at Millwall, which was a massive growth period for me, both, socially, emotionally, and as an athlete as well.
How was that then at like the age of 16, being so young and having so much responsibility on your shoulders? Because there's not many kids that have even left, like they're just leaving school at 16 now.
Exactly. It was I remember my mum and dad being pretty horrified about it. Um, but I was so determined. Um, I must have been so headstrong back then, knowing what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve. Because I certainly wouldn't do it now, but obviously, I've met a lot of the girls at the England camps, nice, and they kind of said, "Listen, just come down to London and make the move." So yeah, I didn't see it as a gamble, because I trusted um, in the fact that I was a good player, and I knew that football would be fine. Um, and I was only young. I wanted to be looked after. I stayed with like a host family, so it was like living at home. It was lovely. And then from there, I got an opportunity out in Sweden. So I think it was like 18, 19. Went out to Sweden for a season, which was fantastic experience. Because Carrie Dunn's just written the book Flying the Flag. I don't know if you've seen that, but I've got to mention in that there's a few. I don't think Kerry Davis. There was a few of us. There weren't many that went to Europe in the 90s. Cara Farley obviously went to Hammarby and was still like a massive icon out there. Kerry Davis was out in Italy. I think Deb Bampton went to Italy, but not many. Sammy Britton, Rachel Brown, they went to Iceland. And then I came back from Sweden and I did all my coaching badges because I just got the travel bug then. That was it. And then I went over to the States and did like the camps out there for like 6 months, which was absolutely fantastic.
So was it at that point then in your career when you thought that you wanted to be in the game for the long haul and start to think about coaching as well, potentially coming
Um,
out of
Probably not. I wasn't thinking long term. I was just living,
yeah.
living every day as it came rather than planning. Because we didn't have that sort of education welfare sort of route encompassed around the players that they've got now. Thinking about a longer term plan, which is probably what should have happened. But we just lived for the moment, which was nice back then. Um, anyway, I got my prelim as it were. Then I did the conversion, and I've done the other conversion now because I've got a UEFA. I've been through generations of coaching badges as well. And then I joined Doncaster Bells, who were kind of like the pioneers of the women's game at the time. So I went there to win some trophies, but I think Croydon or Charlton Athletic had just gone pro or nearly pro, semi-pro. Um, Brought in so many players. The leagues were getting stronger, the teams were getting stronger, and unfortunately, I failed to win anything there. Although it was a fantastic team to play in, it was just to be surrounded by England internationals, week in, like there's so many to name: Jill Coulthard, Kaz Walker, Jackie Sherrard, Karen Skilcorn, just like massive, massive characters in the game at the time who were just massively inspiring to me. And they were players that I watched on TV. When we had the FA Cup, I think that's all we had, FA Cup final back then. So yeah, it was a absolutely fantastic experience.
I mean that must have been great being part of a team like you said, Doncaster Bells, big pioneers of moving forward with the women's game. So I bet it felt good having a part in that, and I bet as a whole it was just good to see the leagues continuously getting stronger as well. Even if opposition for getting stronger, I bet it was just a good thing to see for the women's game as a whole.
It was, and I think we started to see that when it became national because, prior to that, it was just everyone in the north east played each other. Everyone in the Northwest played each other. And then obviously in the Southern Counties. So they never got massive competition. Because I remember when I used to play for Bradford and playing for Bronte, and we used to play Doncaster Bells because they were in our league. And we used to go into it thinking, do you know what? If we keep it under double figures, we've done well. Because they would just hammer me. I think it was being 16-0 sometimes playing against Doncaster Bells. So, you know, that was good to see that, the top teams were getting competition because you only saw that in FA Cup, like when Arsenal might play Doncaster Bells or Croydon and play Donny Bells. So when it became national, it was a total game changer for women's football.
I bet that was a huge thing and then you got more teams and more girls coming through and playing.
And more away trips, traveling down to Southampton on a Saturday on a 8-hour bus journey.
That's what it's about, isn't it? I bet the moments are some of the good memories as well.
Yeah, we had some fun because my mum was like really well known for baking. So like when I used to get on the like cramped up in some little minibus, I used to come in with like chocolate cakes, parkins, lemon drizzle. I'm like, open your cakes and
Was this before the match
oh
too?
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, yeah, I bet there's some good memories from them away trips then. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. But and then I finished my career at Leeds United ladies, and that was really good because Mark Hodgson had kind of developed a team and started bringing in some like top players. Spoke to me, and I went there. I'm not too sure what league we were in back then. It's so long ago, but we did get promotion, and Leeds did get to the top. I mean, some massive players came through there. Steph Houghton, I think, came through there.
Yeah.
Rachel Daly, and it became quite a force. Sue Smith went. Obviously, Lucy Ward that does commentary. She was there as well. So yeah, we had, and Sammy Britton went as well. So it's had some quality players in its time as Leeds. It's a big club, isn't it? It should be up there.
Yeah, they're a huge club, and they've always been, like you say, a big presence within the women's game as well. And just Leeds United as a football club as a whole, it's always one of them clubs that you look at and think it should be um, in the top league of every footballing game
Yeah,
because
but
it's a massive club.
it is, but we came through the times where we weren't even allowed to step on the pitch at Ellen Road.
Really?
Right. But then you got managers like George Graham that came from Arsenal that have always been pro women's football. Vicky
Yeah,
manager down there, and he was a kit manager at Arsenal. Then Ian Wright, even back then, was just such a massive advocate. So he's not one that's jumped on the bandwagon. Ian Wright has been there from the start.
yeah.
Supporting the players. I think he even gave his boots sometimes. He was that supportive of the girls down there. But yeah, he's a good lad.
He's had a lot of criticism, hasn't he? Well, he hasn't had criticism because everybody was on his side, but we won't go into it. But there was the stuff that came out not so long back. But like you say, he's always been massively supportive of the women's game as far as anybody can
Yeah,
see.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
And and you did have some successful moments at Leeds as well, of course, winning a promotion.
Yeah. League cups, loads of
League
cups.
Cup, yeah.
We
So
had a really, really good team. And it wasn't far from me, which was nice. 45 minutes twice a week, 3 times a week in pre-season. Yeah. But you know what? You just don't think anything of it. I mean, when I was at Doncaster Bells, I mean, going to training was like 2 hours from like Hebden Bridge to Doncaster, but I didn't even think about it. Like now I have a moan when I have to go to 30 minutes down road to Halifax. But as a kid back then, when you've got like so much drive and so much ambition and determination, to play hard and get to the top, nothing's an obstacle.
I guess the world's kind of your oyster when you're so young and you've got everything ahead of you, everything's so fresh. I think like a lot of the decisions you probably don't think too much about.
No, like I say, at Leeds United, when George Graham came, obviously he was like the pro women, and then David O'Leary as well, because he was with George Graham at Arsenal, wanted so he
Yeah.
came with like Eddie Gray, and again massively supportive. So I think that sort of prompted Leeds to invest in the game. Thank God.
So it was kind of a lot came from Arsenal then.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not too sure when they got to play on Ellen Road or how many times they have played on Ellen Road, but I think that sort of like archaic dinosaur approach, that women are just going to dig the turf up or they head it and it goes behind them or they toe punt it. There was so many um, bad impressions of what women's football was like then, and top women's football has never been about that.
I bet it's really nice to see the development that it's had within the last few years then. And as we're speaking, it might be over by the time this goes out, but the Lioness is again in another European final against Spain. Bit of a rematch from the World Cup a couple of years
I know.
ago.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell which way it's going to go. And like people have said, I've seen it on like Instagram, and England have been lucky, but I'm not sure about lucky. I think character and resilience, and when you hear your manager saying, play to the final whistle, times like that, absolutely play to the final whistle because it can just change in a second, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about character, and I'd even go as far as saying sometimes you do need a bit of luck on your side in football as well.
Yeah, just like a spinning ball
Yeah,
bounce. Which way is it going to go? And it did
yeah.
go our way a lot of the time, and the I think on the whole, the refs have been pretty good. I've been quite impressed, and I like the ref that we've got for the final. I'm happy with that one.
So pleased with that one then. I must ask you about your time with the Lionesses though, because you did first you got called up for the first time at 16,
Yeah,
talking about like how young you were back then. So what was that like getting called up to the national team at 16, representing your country?
yeah, it's terrifying. Um, and I was kind of like in and out of like the England squad. Obviously not as prolific as like your Kelly Smiths and that sort of them sort of players. But I think whether you've got one cap, five caps, or 50 caps, if you've had three lions on your back, then you'll always be an England player. Um, but it was scary as a 16-year-old. I think I got my first cap out in Iceland, and my second one in Italy. And I remember um, going to Naples, and Jackie Sherrard got injured at half time, and I was like, "Oh no!" I was like crumbling on the bench because I knew that would be going on. It was absolutely terrifying, and I was marking this player called Carolina Marace, and it was like the best player probably that came out of Italy. She was a centre forward, and I was playing alongside Sammy. So I was 16, Sammy was 18, and we were at the heart of the England defence, and it was really scary. But what a change from like club football to international football. And this is when we're working with players now, um, them sort of experiences are come in really handy. That international level football is a completely different kettle of fish.
So was there a lot of fear in that moment then when you knew that you'd be going onto the pitch?
Yeah, I think I could. I think everyone could hear my heart beat
Yeah.
on that bench or feel it vibrating through the
Yeah.
through the bench. But yeah, it was amazing, and I mean, I'm quite emotional anyway. So like, when national anthems come on, even now, I can get quite teary about it. Whether it's the Italian anthem or the Welsh squad singing what they were singing and how they were singing it. It really means a lot to be able to represent your country, and for me as well, because my parents have been so supportive throughout my career, to see them in the stands and, and there weren't many people there in them days, but to see them in the stands it just made it all so worthwhile to give back to them what they've given me all, through my life.
When you're representing your country, it is one of the proudest moments in sport.
Yeah, because, you're one of very few people that actually get to do it. And I didn't even realize because when the FA did the legacy caps, obviously all former players got a cap, and they're still continuing to give the legacy caps to every player, every female player that's ever represented England. And I was 96. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm 90, being the 90, only the 96th woman to play for England. And it
Yeah,
just shows how short, you know, that span of time is where the England team have kind of like been at the forefront. Um, and the ones that have gone before, the legacy players that have got number 40 odd or they not much older than me and still out there.
yeah,
It's crazy, isn't it?
yeah. It makes you think, doesn't it? That like how like how do you describe it? Like that you were like almost one of the first,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. And feel it
Yeah.
it's it's really special to just being able to receive a legacy cap. It's unbelievable.
And now, like, you could because you'd look at the list now, wouldn't you? And you'd like look at it in present time, and think, well, this list's only a list that's going to extend for
Yeah,
the future now.
yeah. And to see your name on that list with like Mary Earps, Kelly Smith, Kerry Davis, and like the players that are out there now. Yeah, it's an honour.
I actually think it would be quite nice to be in that position where you were. I know it's your number 96, but like one of the very early numbers when you think about how many numbers will be on there in say like 30 years time or however long.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But I'm there.
I bet that is a nice feeling, definitely. But of course, you were involved with some of the qualifying for tournaments in the squads, and I believe you were there as well when the FA took over the
Yeah,
England women's team. So I bet that was a monumental moment as well for the women's game.
yeah. It was massive. It was Ted Copeland that came in when the FA took over, and yeah, it was totally different. I mean, I went on so many sort of like training camps with England over a few years, whether it was like Bisham Abbey, Lilleshall, and yeah, when the FA took over, it's investment into it. It's as
Yeah,
simple as that. It's not about heart because the heart was there when the WFA had it. But I think they probably knew the direction that it could go in, looking at, the USA, Sweden, Norway and Denmark, which were kind of like the top teams at
yeah.
that time. They had to do something. So going from when they banned us, all them years ago to then, it's like, you know, taking it over then. But look how far it's come. And it needed to
It's
happen.
it's the doors that it opens, isn't it, to so many more opportunities for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably an opportunity for them to look at the mistakes that have probably gone on in the men's game and they can run it differently, see what works, see what didn't work. And what they're doing now in terms of, the elite centres for these young kids that are coming through. Because, the young kids that are at these centres now are the lionesses of the future or potential lionesses of the future.
Yeah.
These 8, 9 year olds that are at, elite training centres around the country, it's the start of a national pathway. And if you stay on it, you've got a good chance.
I want to talk to you about this in a moment, actually, because you're still heavily involved with the game, working for a football agency. So we'll come back to that in a moment. But uh, coming towards like if we think about the end of your playing career, do you have any setbacks within your journey? We always like to ask this question for like anybody that's kind of listening and is potentially suffering setbacks, and then they can listen to one of the guests that's been on talk about their setbacks and potentially take inspiration. So, do you have any setbacks that you experienced within your journey to football or as a pro? Izzy?
Um, I don't think so, and I think that's probably down to the fact that it was purely amateur, and I didn't get anything for it. Um, Fortunately, I never picked up any serious injuries at all
Mm,
uh, playing football. And I
yeah,
think had I done that, had I got an ACL back in those days, it would have been an absolute nightmare going through that. But no, I didn't. I enjoyed every single minute of all those years of playing. The tournaments, the summer tournaments, the clubs that I played for, the friends that I've made, and still continue to speak to now. I mean, I can still, I'm still playing a little bit. I was playing for a team in Halifax, just having a kick about. But a friend of mine, Julie Fletcher, who's also an England international, she's at Rebirth with me. I can't believe it. She's just done her ACL. She's
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, playing. Yeah, she's just got her results today, and
Oh,
it's
no way.
oh God, all them years of having like dodgy ankles, which she did, and then she was playing, and then just got keeper came in, defender came in, and a knee went the wrong way, and she's torn her ACL and torn her meniscus as a 49, 50-year-old, however she is. It's a word, yeah, and
At
she's
least,
gone through all her career without anything major.
I could say at least she managed to get through the career
Oh
bit,
God.
bit before it's happened. But you mentioned Rebirth there. That's something we need to talk about. The work you're doing now. You are part of the Rebirth Soccer Agency. So can you tell me a little bit about what Rebirth do and the work that you do within the football world?
Yeah, so I am like a consultant. Um, it's it is a self-employed basis, and they do there's three parts of Rebirth. So there's elite academy tours. So we work with academies globally and provide opportunities for them to go out to Canada on pre-season tours in the men's game and the women's game. So just for example, last season we took Aston Villa women's under 21s out to British Columbia in Kamloops to play a three-game schedule out there. I went, it was fantastic. It was a brilliant opportunity for the girls. And Middlesbrough and Ipswich went to Halifax, Nova Scotia, the
Oh
lads.
yes.
This year, Wrexham went out to Halifax, Nova Scotia, which you can imagine was just off the scale, incredible. And we have got Arsenal women's under 21s and Nottingham Forest men's under 21s going out to British Columbia. I think possibly in the air now.
That's a flying as we're speaking. Yeah.
And then obviously we do the scholarships as well. So obviously we knew that like United States is heavily into UK players going over on scholarships for the NCAA, but Canada is becoming quite a force. We recently secured Sophie Harrison from Arsenal under 19s, I think she is. Um, she's in the academy anyway, and she's just got a place at UBC in Vancouver. And we've got a few more athletes going out there and some lads as well. So it is it is getting there. Obviously with the NSL, the Northern Super League starting the first pro league in Canada, it's a great opportunity to be seen at collegiate level for those professional leagues. And then finally, the agency. So the lads agency have been going quite a while, and they wanted to create the women's side. But they wanted to do it the right way and not a couple of lads jumping on the women's football bandwagon. So they got in touch with me. I'd obviously spoken to quite a few people about opportunities because I do scout for Hearts in the SWPL as well, and came across me, and I just thought I'm just going to hear these guys out because I've spoken to that many people that just waffle and they charge people so much money to go on scholarships, and I just
Yeah.
don't like that personally. I don't think it's right that, students go with a debt without even landing in the country. So that was probably one of the biggest pulls for me in that they don't charge any athletes anything for getting opportunities in Canada. So I thought, oh, we're off to a good start. Heard them out, and yeah, it just kind of gathered force from that conversation. I knew we probably wouldn't have a problem speaking to players or getting players on board, just because of the experience that Fletch and I have got. But we just needed an agent, and I didn't want to be an agent. I know how agents are thought about. They don't have the greatest of names. And I really wanted to get really good relationships with like head coaches, technical directors, sporting directors, and also I scout as well. And I didn't want to stop scouting because that's really important to me. So one of my pals that lives near me, I dropped her a line and said, I think you should do this because she's just so organized, so intelligent, so clever in terms of like contracts. She works in finance anyway, so she's very, very into governance and that sort of thing. And we work really, really well together. So I can speak about the football with the players, the clubs, the styles of play within all the clubs, what suits what player. And Shelley can talk about money and that sort of thing. And that's how it works.
Oh, that no, I think that's great, and I bet I can see from you speaking about it as well the passion that you've got for it, and I bet it's great to be in a position having experienced a lot of stuff yourself as a 16-year-old to be in the position now where you can help a new breed of young players coming through in the
Oh, it's
game.
fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic speaking to players. I mean, we've got 25 players now scattered all around from the NSL in Canada. We just sent Emily Much to Bristol City from Motherwell, which is a really good move and a first professional contract, which is just that's what it's all about for me. Is seeing these players on the pathways, getting success and enjoying it. And there's ups and downs along the way, but we can be there to support the players through that because, we don't just sign a player and say, we'll see you when we see you and we'll talk at the end of the contract. We don't run like that. We're speaking to our players every probably 4 to 6 weeks just to whether it's a text, is things okay? Do you want to get on a call? And just giving them the opportunity to be able to speak to us. And they take us up on it, which is nice. I just
That's
find
it.
myself clucking around them like mother hen.
No, I think that's a good thing because we were speaking to Frank Sinclair last week, ex-Chelsea defender, and he's involved in Burnley's academy now, and he said that it's important that you're in constant contact with the players and letting them know how they're doing. So if maybe it's not the best outcome for them at the end of the journey, then maybe then they can be expecting that, and then it doesn't come as such a disappointment.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing that more in the women's game, obviously retained and released lists that we
Yeah,
see all the time in like academies. To be seeing that in the women's game the last few years is shows how far we've come. I mean, it's heartbreaking for the ones that get released because obviously, they go on these academies because they see the bright lights and the Lamborghinis, um,
yeah,
and then when it all ends, it's kind of convincing them that it's not the end,
yeah.
and just try to give these players opportunities to make it. Not that they're not going to make it, but it just might have to take a few little twists and turns along the way.
It's definitely that, and it's like you say, it's not the end of the world if they don't, because there's so many different aspects in football that you can go into still without being a top pro and still having a successful career, whether that's in the business side of it, coaching, even playing in non-league, you can still have such a great career without playing right at the top level.
Yeah, especially in the men's game, because obviously the money in the women's game is
Yeah,
it's nowhere near. Even the top women's players are nowhere near, and I'm not too sure what the top players in the women's game can be compared to in the men's game, but it'll be low down. But like you say, just because Man United have not retained, I won't use them because they'll still probably play in a Premiership team. But like a Championship side releasing a player, they're still going to make a fantastic income playing a
yeah,
couple of down,
mm,
work the way back up. But it's a little bit different in the women's game because we've only got two professional leagues,
yeah,
only 12 teams in each. That's the
yeah,
difference. So the competition is frightening. It's frightening.
yeah. When
You look at most sort of like
mm,
WSL teams, even WSL2, the amount of international players that are in these teams, that's the level that these clubs are after, international level players, which is brilliant for the women's game, but it makes it tough.
there's so much competition.
Yeah. Yeah, but then, doors, it's difficult now because of the passport situation with Brexit and stuff for UK players to go into Europe. So that's another thing that makes it harder, especially in the women's game. In the men's game, the point system is completely different. I don't know if you know about that. So the sooner that it becomes level playing field, the men and the women, it will make it a lot easier as well because something like the women's points to get into this country are like 24 and the men's is well under 20. Let's
Also,
get that.
it's
Let's
quite tough to,
Yeah, we
yeah.
need to get that down a little bit, I think.
So no, I guess that's kind of not helped them Brexit really.
I know. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, without a doubt, it's made it tough getting into this country because so many players want to play in the WSL. Because to me, WSL and NWSL are probably the best two leagues in the world
Mm.
by far.
I guess at the same time though, it's good to see so much competition and so much want to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is, and I think what makes them different from the other leagues is that the whole 12 teams, you don't know who's going to win or lose. It's going to be a tough game.
It's certainly going in the right direction, and I'm sure that it will continue to grow in the next few years. But it's been great chatting with you, Izzy. Thanks so much for coming on, sharing your story, talking about Rebirth, the work you do now, and everything. It's been great listening to your journey. But we'll finish off in the final with the final question, which we ask each guest on this. So this is going back to the 16-year-old Issy Pollard that was living in London, playing for Millwall, getting called up for England. We always ask, what advice would you give a teenage version of yourself now, knowing what you know?
Um, yeah, I would just concentrate, work hard, never give up, headspace, speak to people, um, train as hard as you can, and any opportunities, um, what you're not too sure of, take it. That's my biggest regret. I've just remembered it. Is not taking a scholarship in the States when I got offered to. So if you get things like that offered, moves, transfers, speak to the right people, and don't turn down opportunities without thinking about it.
Great words of advice, and Izzy, thank you so much for sharing that, and thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.